Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Minisode number 135. On today's Minisode with your boy, we're going to talk about the all or nothing mentality. The question came from one of my clients, actually. Jonathan, thank you so much. Appreciate the question. And he just asked about crushing the all or nothing mentality. And just real quick for people who don't kind of understand what that is, it's simply just, let's say you're on a diet and today for breakfast, you nailed your healthy breakfast, right? And at lunch, you nailed your healthy lunch. But then dinner comes around and let's say you go out to eat somewhere and you were going to get the salad and instead you decide to get the burger and fries. And so instead of simply having the burger and fries and moving on, and maybe later that night, you just finish the night with a protein shake and some fruit or something light, right? Because you had a heavy dinner, so you're going to have a lighter snack before you go to bed, as opposed to somebody who suffers from the all or nothing mentality might then have that dinner, quote unquote, off their diet, and then simply end the night with ice cream, baked treats, cookies, snacks, chips, etc. Basically, they realize, okay, well, I'm off my diet now, so now let's really go off my diet. And that's kind of the all or nothing mentality. They're either completely on their diet or completely off their diet. But whenever they go off their diet, they tend to really go off their diet. And this is how also just a dinner on Friday night can turn into, or just like a quote unquote cheat meal on Friday night can turn into an entire cheat weekend and then an entire cheat week, et cetera, right? So you get the idea. And honestly, this is something that I help my clients with very, very often. It's something that I've dealt with before, and I understand I kind of understand the basis behind it, and we'll get into that. But since I've got a few that I want to touch on, a few pieces of advice, let's go ahead and get into the first one. And the first one is to reframe how you see failure. So whenever people using the all or nothing mentality, they see that like cheat meal at dinner as a failure, right? Or maybe it's not like a planned cheat meal. And like I said, they were going to get the salad, but then they got the burger and fries instead. And so they reframe that as a failure. So then they might as well just keep failing the rest of the night, right? And I think that kind of viewing of food is kind of where it can provide an unhealthy relationship with food, because you see a burger and fries as quote unquote unhealthy or bad, right? And so whenever you do something bad, well, you might as well just keep doing bad for the rest of the night, and then you can restart fresh tomorrow, right? It's kind of also kind of like a perfectionist mentality. It's like, well, my diet's already screwed up, so I'm just going to keep screwing it up, and then I'll start with a clean slate tomorrow, right? And so I think my advice would be to give yourself permission to make these quote unquote screw ups. And I don't see if you decide to have the burger and fries, I don't see that as a screw up as long as it's a conscious decision, because that's what I'll get into next. But the thing with this all or nothing mentality is that it's kind of a lazy mentality, to be honest, because the reason why we do it is because we kind of want to be mindless whenever we're going about these things. Because you're trying so hard. So breakfast and lunch, let's say you stayed on track with your diet, and then dinner, and then you really want to get, you really know you should get the salad, but then you end up getting the burger and fries anyway, and then you just feel guilty about getting the burger and fries, and then you feel like a failure. But if before the meal you made a conscious decision, hey, I know that I'm going to be out with friends, I don't do this all the time, I've been making pretty decent progress on my diet so far, so why don't I just use this meal as more of like a quote unquote lifestyle meal or a free meal? That's how I frame it with my clients. And then I can just enjoy this meal, get what I want, and then I'll get right back on track my very next meal, right? There, or if you frame it as, okay, I'm going to make sure before I go to this restaurant, I have 1 to 2 things on the menu that I am okay with getting, and that will still allow me to stick to my diet, but it's also not super hard restriction, and you're just getting, a piece of grilled chicken and broccoli, right? Because no one wants to do that. But however you choose the priority of that meal, you just need to commit to it. And so if you commit to it being more of a fat loss meal, well, that's fine. Then choose one of those 1 to 2 decisions that you made beforehand. But if you say, okay, it's a lifestyle meal, it's just a free meal, I'm going to use this as just overall life experience and to enjoy this time with friends, well, then that's fine too. There are no wrong answers here. The whole point, though, is to make sure that it's a conscious decision, because that's how you feel good about yourself and good about your decisions leaving that meal. It's like, it's not necessarily the burger and fries that makes you so upset. The burger and fries makes you upset because you told yourself you were going to get the salad. Right? So you broke a promise to yourself, and that's what makes you feel guilty. There's nothing wrong with a fucking burger and fries. But whenever you go back on your word because you said you were going to get a salad, that's what makes us feel bad, right? So the point is to make sure you're clear from the beginning. That's kind of the idea, is to be conscious and make these decisions beforehand instead of just kind of mindlessly going into it and hoping for the best and then feeling bad about it afterwards. And so ways to become more mindful is going to be, of course, meditation. I think that's kind of the ongoing long-term solution to this. And I think that will only make these mindful decisions become easier over time, because it's a practice, right? And if you do this day in and day out, you'll notice these little shifts in mindfulness over time. I've experienced them for sure myself, and clearly other people have reaped the benefits as well. Sure, it may be hard at first, and maybe you suck at quote unquote meditating or being mindful, but you may notice as you go along, before you do make that impulsive decision to overeat or go quote unquote off your diet, then you can maybe pause and reflect and just kind of stop yourself. It doesn't prevent you from having these thoughts ever, right? You're still going to have these thoughts of overeating or wanting to do something that isn't necessarily aligned with your values at that time. But what the meditation does and what mindfulness does is it sends up a red flag so that you don't necessarily act on those thoughts. You'll still have the thoughts, but you don't follow through with them. And that's kind of the main thing here. And that's why mindfulness can be so powerful. So of course, meditating each day is going to be the long-term solution. But if you want more of a tactical solution within that one meal, I think something really good to do is whenever you feel that urge to overeat or to whatever, binge or whatever you want to call it, right? I think it's important to try to pause as soon as you feel that urge. That red flag goes off, and there's this moment in between getting the urge and actually taking the action, right? It's within that little moment where you can decide what you want to do. And I think what you need to do, deciding whether you actually go through with it or not, isn't necessarily the point. The point is to pause in that space, right? And how you can do that is simply pause before you do anything, kind of clear your mind, and then take a deep inhale and then have a deep exhale, right? So it's I think the recommendation is typically like 4 seconds in, you hold that breath in for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds, right? And you keep doing this. So it's 4 in, 4 pause, and then 4 out, right? And just do this for 5 to 10 times, and you'll notice that you have a clearer mind to make a more rational decision afterwards, and you don't just follow the urges of your emotions, right? And so then you can make a more calculated decision that you'll likely feel better afterwards. And this will only get easier over time too, because then you feel in control. And whenever you feel in control and you feel confident that sure, these urges may happen, but you have the tools to approach this challenge in the future with more confidence, with more trust in yourself, that you'll make the decision that's best for the future, right? So that's that. Just checking time real quick. So we're almost through it. I think another part with the all or nothing mentality and kind of the big crux of this is we see events as related to one another. So if you think about dominoes being lined up next to each other, we think of, okay, we push this one domino over and then every other domino subsequently falls over as well. So we have that shitty meal, let's say at lunch, and we overeat and we eat a lot more than we want to. And then we say, we'll just start over tomorrow. And then you eat whatever you want throughout the rest of dinner, throughout the rest of night, throughout the rest of the night. And you don't realize that there's no reason why what you have at lunch has to affect what you eat at dinner, right? Every single one of these decisions or dominoes, right? You have all the dominoes lined up next to each other. It can seem like every single one of those dominoes are related to each other and whenever you knock over one, the next one has to fall as well. But actually, it's a bunch of singular events, and they have nothing to do with the other domino, right? Or these other decisions. What you have at dinner has nothing to do with what you had at lunch or breakfast, right? It doesn't have to dictate these things. And I think the easiest explanation of this and the good analogy or whatever you want to call it is there's no reason why you would get a flat tire just randomly while you're driving down the road. And then whenever you get that flat tire, you pull over to the side of the road, you get out, and then you slash your other 3 tires. Right? It's like that's the equivalent of having a shitty lunch and overeating, and then continuously overeating for the next day or two. Right? That you're slashing your tires for no real reason. And so instead of seeing these events as correlated and related, just remember it's a singular choice. And this is why every single meal that you have is another opportunity to get back on track with your goals. So it's not just tomorrow is a new slate. It's like every single moment is a new slate. Every single decision that you have to make is a new slate. And you simply just begin again, right? That you can start over at any point. And there's no reason why the next 5 minutes or the next decision that you make can't be the best decision that you've made all week or all year or ever, right? So just remember that these are not correlated. I think that that's something very important. Okay, and lastly, my last solution is pretty simple. This is just the never miss twice rule. You may have heard other people talk about this, but this simply, it's exactly what it sounds like. So you never miss twice. So if you have that shitty meal at lunch, right, you got to make sure that dinner is also not a quote unquote miss. You want to make sure that you're aligned with your goals at dinner, right? So you can't have 2 unhealthy meals in a row. That's kind of the gist here. And that typically helps people understand, okay, if I had one shitty meal, I can't make sure I follow it up with another shitty meal. And of course, these terms is just a lack of better terms. You guys understand what I'm saying. But if you plan on never missing twice, the likelihood of you getting back on track more quickly and being more consistent over time increases a ton, right? So never miss twice. And lastly, if you find yourself in the all or nothing mentality over and over and over again, well, maybe you also need to look at how much you're restricting. Maybe you're restricting yourself too much, you're depriving yourself too much, and you simply need to eat a little bit more or work out a little bit less. And lastly, maybe if this happens really often, then maybe now's not the time to diet. Maybe there's other stuff going on in your life where you need to switch gears. You need to focus on some other goal. You need to go to maintenance. You need to focus on strength. You need to figure out something else where you can keep kind of progressing forward, but maybe fat loss isn't in the cards right now, but in 8 weeks' time, you can try it again and it'll be a little bit easier. Right. Okay, so that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that helped. This Minisode number 135, how to prevent the all or nothing mentality. Jonathan, thank you for your question. If you guys have questions as well, just drop them in the link below. You can submit your question. You can be anonymous, but this is kind of how I want to do these Minisodes from here on out. So if you have a question, please submit it in the link below, and I'll be happy to answer it on here for you all. Okay, thank you guys as always for listening and for watching. See ya.